Hello students, Mr. Kaczynski. We've got the 4.3 Practice Your Skills Solutions. Talking about dependent and independent events, ranges, types of relationships. Here we go. Let's get after it. Sketch a reasonable graph and label the axes for each situation below. Write a few sentences explaining each graph. Okay, so the more students who help decorate for the homecoming dance, the less time it'll to decorate. Okay, so if I was going to make a graph of this, I would probably measure number of students here. And the more students we have, the less time it will take. And what I think is going to happen here is it's going to take a ton of time if only one person's doing it, and it'll take half as much time as if two people do it. If three people are there, it'll take a third of the time, and if four people are there, a quarter of the time. So I think we're going to get this curve type relationship here. Okay, so how could we describe that? Oops. We could say this is an inverse relationship, we call it. More students we have, the less time it will take. But we'll never finish in 0 hours, something like that. Okay, in other words, this is not a graph that's ever going to hit either axis. All right, let's look at this here. The more you charge for t-shirts, the fewer t-shirts you would sell. So here's what I'm going to go with for my graph. I think this is probably going to be pretty linear here. So price here, number of shirts here. And like I said, I think it's going to be linear, as in there's a price point where if you charge too much, you're not going to sell any shirts. So maybe that's what I'll write too. The more you charge, the less t-shirts you'll sell. If you charge too much, you won't sell any. The more you spend on advertising, the more products you'll sell. Oh, by the way, on the t-shirts, you could argue that some might argue that it'll never hit 0, that it'll just kind of level off there at the end. You'll always get some sucker to be able to pay a certain amount of money for a t-shirt. There's brands you can probably think of right now that fit that. The more you spend on advertising, the more product you'll sell. So money spent, products sold. This is probably going to be kind of linear too, you know, something like this, I would think. Maybe not though. I mean, you could might make an argument that it's a curve, but all right. Sketch a graph of a continuous function to fit each description. So continuous is what we're going with here. All right, always increasing with a faster and faster rate of change. So here's our grid, always increasing, faster and faster rate of change. So it's going up, 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 but it gets faster as it goes. That would be this kind of curve right there. decreasing with a slower and slower rate of change, then increasing with a faster and faster rate of change. So decreasing slower and slower each time, and then increasing faster and faster, something like that. Linear and decreasing, that's easy. It's just like that. And decreasing with a faster and faster rate of change. That one's a little tricky, maybe. So we're going to start off with a slow decrease and then pick it up. Something like that. Use this number line to write an inequality to represent each interval. Include the lowest value in each interval. Exclude the highest value. Okay, so include the lowest, exclude the highest. So we're from A to B, we're saying from 0 to 4. So we're going to say from 0, including 0, we'll put that little line under the inequality, up until 4, but not including 4. So we won't put that line there. All right, from B to C, that's 4 to 6. So 4 is less than or equal to X, which is less than 6. B to D, so 4 to 10. 4 is less than or equal to X, which is less than 10. Another way we can say this is that X, any number between 4 and 10, including 4. All right, C to E, 6 to 12. So this is really pretty repetitive once you know how to do it. And A to E, 0 to 12, including 0, not including 12. Sketch a discrete function to fit each description, always increasing with a slower and slower rate of change. All right, always increasing, but then slower and slower. So fast at first and then slow. So it's discrete though, so it's not continuous. So we're not going to make a line. Something like that. Linear with a constant rate of change equal to 0. Okay, so that's going to be a horizontal line, but again, discrete means not continuous. Linear and decreasing. We've already done one like this, but the only change is that we're not going to do a continuous straight line. We're just going to do discrete means you're making withdrawals, you know, every week from the bank account. You might graph it like this. Decreasing with a faster and faster rate of change. So decreasing, slow at first, and then faster. Something like that. Now we're going to list the independent and dependent variables. So which one can you affect and which one is being affected by the other? Okay, the weight of your dog and the reading on the scale. Well, the dog's weight is what determines the reading on the scale. So we'll say it like this. Independent. Oops. The dog's weight. Dependent. The reading on the scale. The reading on the scale is dependent on the weight of the dog. The reading on the scale is dependent on the weight of the dog. The amount of time you spend in an airplane and the distance between your departure and destination. Well, I guess you get to pick where you're going to fly, but you don't get to pick how long it's going to take. So I would say independent is distance between departure and destination. And dependent is the time spent on the airplane. So the time spent on the airplane depends on the distance of your flight. I always like to put it in a sentence and make sure it makes sense after. The number of times you dip a wick into hot wax and the diameter of a handmade candle? Well, again, what do you have control over here? You have control, you only have control over the diameter of the candle because of you have control of how many times you're dipping the wick into the wax. So I'm going to say independent is number of times you dip the wick of the candle. Dependent is going to be diameter of the candle. As in, the diameter is dependent on the number of times you dip the wick into the wax. All right, there you go. Practice your skills 4.3. Hopefully that helps clear up some things you might have been confused about. Make sure to ask me or your teacher if you've got any more questions. Have a good one.